Hi everyone, my name is Sabrina Mir and I'm a teaching assistant with the Young Scientists Program at USC. Welcome to week 8 of the special education YouTube videos. This week we'll be doing bridge building. This week we'll be making bridges out of newspapers, but before we begin we should go over a few vocabulary words that are important to making bridges. The first vocabulary word is a dead load. So a load is a weight or a force that's on the bridge itself. A dead load is a load on the bridge that is pretty constant over time. This includes the things that the bridge is made of, so like metal rods, for example, or also things that stay there for a long time, so like construction signs, different barriers or road signs, things like that. Another vocabulary word is live loads. So these are loads or forces that are there for a pretty short amount of time. The biggest example of a live load would be the cars that are driving across the bridge because they're only there for a few minutes. Next, we have two types of forces that come with bridge building. So the first one is called the tension force. A tension force is a force that keeps the material stretched tightly. So one example of a tension force is when you pull a rubber band until it can't be pulled anymore, but it hasn't yet snapped. That's tension, it's the stretching force. The other force that we want to talk about is compression force. Compression force is a force that squishes or shortens a material. So an example of a compression force is when you push down on a spring or push down on some sort of object and it kind of squishes it. That's an example of a compression force. Both tension and compression are very important when building bridges because you want objects to drive across the bridge or be on the bridge that doesn't exceed the tension force or compression force because you want your bridges to last for a long time. So you don't want it to be stretched too far where it's broken apart or have too much of a tension or compress too much and collapse. This week we'll be making our own bridges out of newspaper. So I just got a stack of newspapers ready and also some tape to put the bridge together. You'll also need some sort of weight or force. So you can use things like erasers, pencils, books, anything that comes to mind that you can put on top of your bridge and test it to see how long it stays up for. If you don't have newspapers at your disposal, you can also use something like construction paper, any sort of paper or material that you can use to build your bridge. I'm going to show you how I built my bridge, but you guys can go ahead and make your bridge however you want it. I'll include some pictures here to show you some of the different kinds of bridges that you can make. The technique that I used was rolling up several pieces of newspaper and taping them close to form these cylinder shapes. So I did this to about 4 different stacks of newspapers. You can see me taping them together here. Then I'm going to gather them together and just tape them all together to just form my bridge. After this, I decided that I wanted some height to my bridge, so I made these little square shapes to hold them up. You can also tape them to 2 ends of a chair or table, but I wanted them to stand up by themselves, so I just made these and taped them on too. So now that you've built your bridge, go ahead and test it by putting objects on it and see how much you can put on it until it breaks. Here you can see me putting a book on the bridge and trying to find the center of balance so that it doesn't tip over. You can see it held up the books, and here you will see the end point where it can no longer hold up, where it's compressed too much with this third book. If you have time, go ahead and make some other types of bridges. Try different types of shapes like triangles, squares, circles, and see what makes the best and strongest bridge. The diverse scientist for this week is a female engineer by the name of Emily Roebling. Emily Roebling's father-in-law, John Roebling, actually designed the Brooklyn Bridge, which is one of the most famous bridges in New York. When her father-in-law became ill, her husband, Washington Roebling, took over the designing and creation of the Brooklyn Bridge, but he also unfortunately fell ill during this time. So Emily Roebling is known as the chief engineer of what we see now as the Brooklyn Bridge in New York. The Brooklyn Bridge is actually one of the oldest suspension bridges in the world. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see you next week for week 9 of the special education YouTube videos.